Listen.
All right. Welcome to Nintendo Voice Chat, IGN's Nintendo podcast. My name is Philip Mewson, and today I'm joined by Miranda Sanchez, Brian Altano,
What's up?
And Zachary Ryan.
Hey.
What's going on, everyone?
We're good. We're real good.
Good week tonight, or this week?
Yeah.
It's the best week of all time.
For a short week, it has been a very hectic week, but feeling good. Glad to be on the show.
Yep.
Me too.
Yeah, we have a 4-day week this week at IGN, but there's a lot of stuff going on in the world of Nintendo, which we are very excited to talk about. Apparently, Switches are getting bricked. We have our number one 100th top 100 game.
I thought you said we had exciting news to talk about. You're like, oh, your Switch is dying.
Yeah, I know. Exciting news. Switches are dying everywhere.
I get PTSD from that, man. I don't want to hear all. I was like, oh, God, not again.
Yes. And Pear is out this week, but we have Miranda here to talk about Detective Pikachu.
I reviewed that.
Yes.
Hi, it's me.
All right.
Exactly. But before we get into all that stuff, let's talk about some cool new stuff that just came to Mario Odyssey. It looks like we got 2 new costumes finally, and we kind of knew that some costumes were coming, were on their way. And the new costumes are the Satellaview and the Baseball Mario. So let's take a quick look at each of them. Let's bring up the Satellaview here so we can take a closer look. Yeah. So very neat, very cool. You can obviously see the Famicom influence there happening. Which is
nice.
It
looks like when a 6-year-old tries to dress like an astronaut.
Yeah.
There's something really wonderful
Just
about this.
pins an Etch-a-Sketch to his chest.
Puts a beekeeper's hat
Oh my
on.
gosh, you're right.
The one thing that I really love about Mario Odyssey that's further proof in this Satellaview costume is that they are not afraid to go like deep in their catalog for Mario costumes. Satellaview is a very niche audience, even for Nintendo fans. And so it's really cool that they included this because it's like old dudes like you and me remember the Satellaview from when it was out.
Yeah, you and I covered the launch party for this.
That's right.
That's definitely not true.
You guys were at the midnight launch.
Imagine
I think I was like
explaining
10.
the Satellaview to my 30-year-old children. But no, I think it's really cool that they include stuff like this for like old school Nintendo fans as well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
It's like a nice learning point too for people like me who didn't know what it was.
Right.
So.
That's one of the special things about Nintendo is they have so many like callbacks to just bring back and provide fan service with. So
Yeah.
let's bring up that baseball costume too. I kind of want to see that as well. So yeah,
and it's
obviously
baseball.
Mario as a little baseball player, which is nice.
This is good
adorable.
because it's right in time for opening day.
That's true.
Yeah.
Exactly. I
Get
wonder.
out there and do a good slugging.
I wonder if that was timed on Nintendo's
I would
part.
assume so. I don't know anything about baseball, so I can't speak to that.
Just know there's a lot of baseball fans around our office and I don't like it.
That's true.
That's about it. Raise my lunch prices.
We're right at the street from
Yeah.
the Giants Stadium here in San Francisco, and every year from early April to September, October, depending on how well the Giants do, at least 3 times a week, we're guaranteed just a sea of people at every venue, restaurant, coffee shop.
They descend seasonally like locusts.
That's true. Yeah. And none of them are interested in Mario's baseball.
No, they're
costume.
not. They don't care about
I
that
like
man
this, though.
whatsoever.
Me too.
If our teams looked like Mario when they're playing baseball, I'd cheer for them a little bit more.
Tune in.
Yeah, maybe. I'm like, oh, it's Mario playing baseball.
I like the Giants because they have Halloween colors.
That's true.
And that's why we don't cover sports at IGN.
Oh boy. Yeah, well, those costumes are available now in obviously a free. It wasn't even an update. They just unlocked them.
They're just in the shop.
They're free, right?
Yeah. Or no, they're not. Well, they don't cost money. They cost coins. Yeah. And they're not too crazy expensive either.
Yeah.
So if you have a couple thousand coins lying around, you could definitely grab those.
I recently dipped back into Super Mario Odyssey and obviously like still I'm just loving that game so much when I take the opportunity to jump back in and collect a few more Power Moons and stuff. But I wasn't one to like I'm not a completionist in the way that like I needed every single costume.
Right.
But like you are. Andrew Goldfarb is.
I was
you know what
until
I mean?
my save file
Well,
vanished, but
That's true, yeah.
Oh.
Well, had that not happened, is this the kind of thing that like
Brought the beer.
would you is this the kind of thing that would bring you back to the game? To,
Oh,
like,
yeah, for
grind
sure.
more coins to get those costumes just to say like, hey, I got them.
well, like on behalf of Mario, I'd feel like there's a little man in this world that does't have all his clothes that he needs, so I'm gonna go get him that baseball.
Being a father is
Time to
going to be
shopping.
very expensive for you.
Well, speaking of Mario, IGN has just concluded their top 100 games of all time, and we have a number 1.
That's right.
What's that number 1 game?
Mario is missing.
Yes. Mario. No.
Mario teaches typing. No. Every year, not every year, but every few years we update our top 100 list to reflect the tastes of the current staff at IGN. And as people come and go and tastes change and stuff like that, different games kind of make their way onto the list and kind of move around in position and stuff like that. And previously, our number 1 game was Super Mario Bros. 3. Totally deserving. But this time around, The top honor goes to Super Mario World, which
It's my personal favorite Mario game.
It's my favorite Mario game as well, and it's totally deserving of the #1 spot, and I'm glad to see it there for at least the next few years. So if you're angry that we chose Super Mario World, just wait a few years; it might change.
I have this weird thing where I was there when Mario 3 first came out. It was an event at my school. Getting a copy of that game, I think I've told the story on the show. Like my dad got me a stack of books for my birthday, and I went through all the books, and at the very bottom of the stack was Mario 3. I love that game. I adore it. Super Mario World is better.
Yeah.
It's a better game. There's just something, I think it's more accessible.
Yeah.
It's also more challenging, and the fact that you can go back and replay levels and find alternate exits that open up entire new worlds. Like you can run through that game in 10.5 minutes. I've done it before. Or you can go back and get 96 gold star, which is basically 100%ing that game. And it's because like you swim under stages that you didn't think you could swim under, and you open up doors, and there's an entire hidden world in that game. Like there's so much cool stuff.
Just delightful.
Yeah, it's really cool, and I think like the art's awesome.
Some of those secret exits are like super challenging, where you need to utilize like genuine skill to like fly across the level and then dip under something at the exact right moment to get to an exit. And like, it's just such a brilliant game, and I think it's totally deserving of our #1 spot. So.
I agree, and it brought us Yoshi, who you have to kill to get to a lot of those exits.
Yeah, that's true.
To jump off his head and let him die. Rest in peace, Yoshi.
Totally agree. Well, another piece of Nintendo history is in the news as well. It looks like the Wii Shop channel has officially started not accepting coins, or I'm sorry, points anymore. So you're unable to buy points on the Wii Shop, which is for the original Wii, not the Wii U. And Nintendo had announced this before, that they were closing it down. And the original date that it's actually being shut down is January 31st, 2019. So if you have a bunch of points, you can still make those purchases, but you can't add any more funds.
Yeah.
So that's like, it's like finding $10 in your old like jacket or something like that.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
you still have money on your Nintendo Wii, now's the time to buy. I don't know.
More times to use it.
Bomberman?
Yeah, use them and then just don't add any more.
Yeah.
I guess smart.
Friend of the show, Jared Petty, was tweeting about this the other night. He was saying that he had read that it was not accepting points anymore, so he had like gone and hooked up his Wii for the first time in several years, and was like up until like 3 or 4 in the morning, like adding points and buying games and stuff like that,
so
just to make
funny.
sure that he had them. Yeah, I mean, it feels like a long time coming, because like we've heard January 2019 for so long, that the idea that points aren't accepted anymore is kind of like, oh, well, that's sort of the beginning of the end.
Yeah, and it's sort of an interesting move for Nintendo specifically, because in a way, every sort of kind of ecosystem they've ever had in a console has been kind of timeless, right? Like you buy GameCube games, they run on your GameCube, NES, Super NES. I remember eventually like the DSi shop got shut down, or whatever access to that portal was, or maybe is that still accessible in some way? Like connecting to the
remember.
store on a DS?
I haven't played or haven't tried to buy anything on my DSi in a very long time. I just use it to transfer Pokemon, like myself. I trade.
Exactly. So it's interesting that like, I don't know, there was this 100 million plus selling system that they have that had a store on it that we all bought things from, that is now closing. And it's weird, because it closes the door on the history of that and the accessibility of making that a legacy console forever.
Yeah,
totally.
So you download what you need right now, because you'll never get to do it again.
Perhaps one day soon we'll find out about a new platform with which we can purchase those games yet again.
What if we could just give money to Nintendo for games that they've already made? What an insane thought.
If only there was a new console that could, play these virtual
That could
games.
step in and fill that role.
Yeah, some sort of like virtualized, like a way to sort of replicate
Right.
old video game systems, kind of like a virtual, like a virtual console.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting idea there.
And putting it on Switch, a system that sells millions, I think, allowing us to put our credit cards in there to purchase.
You're crazy, Brian.
I don't know.
It's probably a
never
way
work.
for Nintendo to just print money. So,
Anyway,
yeah.
feel free to laugh me out of the room. It sounds dumb.
Yeah. Well, okay. In other news, Chicken Wiggle has a Kickstarter. Let's just get through it. Chicken Wiggle has a Kickstarter.
A Chickstarter.
Yep, a Chickstarter. Thank you, Brian. And they're
incubating.
almost fully funded. Their goal is their goal is for 30,000. They're currently, as of this recording, just under 27,000. Now the Kickstarter ends on April 5th, and this is of course to bring Chicken Wiggle, the 3DS game, over to Switch with a couple new added features that I think are really interesting. So if you're a fan of that series, definitely make
Or
sure
Jules' work in general.
Yeah, or just Jules'
like
work.
Mutant Mud and
Yeah, I think for people that don't really know a lot about this game, because it came so late in the 3DS's life cycle, and also not to imply the 3DS
I'd say it's still
doesn't-
alive.
I knew. I got
Excuse
to the end of that
you.
sentence and I was like, Miranda's got the laser beams right on her face right now.
It's just like, what are you saying?
Many of us had moved on to the Switch. Nothing wrong with
You can
that.
use both, guys.
Yes,
You can play both.
okay. Oh, yes. The rest in peace, Nintendo 3DS. I'm just kidding. Chicken Wiggle is basically a platforming game, sort of Mario Maker style, where you can create your own levels. There was a pretty passionate community around it, and people really dug it. It just came kind of late. And so giving it some new life on Switch, I think it'd do really well over there, especially in lieu of not having Mario Maker on that system. Yeah. Because bringing all the stuff over to the Nintendo Switch is apparently very difficult to do.
So if you got a couple of bucks and you want to kick it down to this Kickstarter, to help Chicken Wiggle make its home on the Switch.
Yeah.
It needs help patching.
Can we include
Put your dollars on it so it gets warm.
Can we include the link to that Kickstarter in the episode notes?
Yeah.
For people that want to donate?
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be in the description or the notes wherever you're watching
Right
this.
about here. Right
Somewhere below.
Yep.
Yeah.
You got, man, I want a URL.
All right. Well, as we alluded to earlier, Brian did lose all of his saves. His Switch was unfortunately bricked. And now Nintendo has come forward and they've made a statement in regards to third-party docks bricking Switch consoles out there. Now, Nintendo's statement is exactly, unlicensed products and accessories do not undergo Nintendo's testing and evaluation process. They might not work at all with our game systems, and they could have compatibility problems with certain games, the Nintendo Switch system itself, and other licensed accessory peripherals. Now that comes by way of Kotaku. So, Nintendo publicly stated that they don't test these third-party accessories. Like they do not attain any responsibility for what you put inside of your Switch, essentially. But this kind of blew up a little bit. There were people that were inspired to sort of do their own research and investigations, and a couple users from Reddit, in particular, I'm going to say his name wrong, but it's Intoxicus5 and Nathan K have sort of delved deeper into this subject and found out that the Switch is not USB-C compliant and overdraws some USB PD power to power supplies by 300%.
Oh, yes.
Now that's not a
Can you put that into layman's terms, because none of us are electrical engineers.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
In English, Egon.
So none of this is like officially confirmed. We don't know if Nathan K is like, an electrical engineer himself, but he is sort of a respected guy.
Yeah.
On the internet. Yeah.
And to speak on on my own issue that happened specifically with the Switch was, I believe once or twice I got sent a third-party dock. I used it for 10 minutes for a Let's Play for Up at Noon. I brought it back to my desk. I brought the Switch home. I plugged it into my actual first-party dock, and blinking lights started happening. So I was still able to charge it and play it in handheld mode.
But it wouldn't talk to your TV.
It wouldn't talk to my TV. So technically, I could have just kept going forever, but with no cloud saves, eventually I had to pay the Reaper and send my Switch into Nintendo, and then things got wiped. So yeah, just be careful. I've seen like a lot of people in the NVC Facebook group, which you should join because it's awesome, showing pictures of like third-party docks that they bought because they're on sale and there's like deals all the time. Avoid them. Like, I know the first-party dock is ugly. Let's be completely blunt. Like, it's a big, stupid block.
Not yours. You have that cool Super Nintendo paint job on.
That's cool. That's a cool one. Yeah. That's cool as hell. You put stickers on yours and make it look beautiful. Do that with anything you own, really. But specifically, the dock is not great looking, but it gets the job done and it won't nuke your system. So just be mindful of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think there's sort of I mean, personally, I feel like it's dramatic to say, but it's like I have this mentality like, well, that won't happen to me. Like, that's fine. And it was really crazy to me that out of all the people in the office that it would happen to, that it happened to you.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where it's like Nintendo coming out and explicitly saying like, hey, we don't test these third-party peripherals. It's totally on them if it like borks your Switch. That's a major deal because that essentially renders all third-party peripherals that are going to plug into that USB-C dock dangerous.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't trust those immediately. Like, I don't want any of that near
And
Switch.
it's wild because you use a third-party dock at your desk.
Well, actually, it's not.
It's not.
I made that dock.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I meant to ask you about that because it's super cool. But it's like this funny little stand, and it was really funny because like after this story was kind of like being talked about in the office this morning, I'm looking over at your desk like, why is he still using that? Like, what is his deal? Like,
No, I got rid of
living on the edge over there, or
Yeah.
what?
No.
What did you got, an official one?
Yeah, so what happened was I got the base top shell. They sell this like DIY mini dock kit, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really cool, yeah. But it involves you actually having to go out, buy an official like Nintendo dock, take it apart, and then put all the innards of it inside of this mini dock.
Got
It's
it.
really cool.
So yeah, it's a little bit of an invasive process, and you could potentially break the dock in the process. But you know, if you're a little savvy with technical hardware and stuff like that, you could do it. It's not too bad.
Be honest, did Tom Marks do it for you?
But so we pay someone to do it, right?
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
But
was it Tom? Did Tom build it for you?
no.
I will also add that I've read horror stories like mine that are actually worse because instead of sending the Switches directly to Nintendo, they reached out to the third parties themselves and were like, you bricked my system. And then now they're going through the channels that do not really do Switch returns in the same way. So it's you're handing it to somebody who's handing it to somebody who's handing it to somebody.
Pretty sure that just ruins the warranty you had. With
Oh
Nintendo
yeah,
right
yeah.
away.
All of that gets dangerous. So the coolest thing about getting my Switch docked, or you know, my whole thing just getting bricked basically, is that Nintendo accepted it and returned it to me within like 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
So their customer service is awesome, and I will maintain that. But
I will also add on that. It is fantastic if you've ever had to call customer service.
Yeah.
One time I was trying to fix Wi-Fi issues with my old 3DS XL, transferring to a new 2DS, and I ended up figuring it out midway through the call when they were transferring me to another person, and so I just hung up. And the next day, somebody called me back and asked if I got my issue resolved.
oh my
And it was
god,
all okay.
that's like
I
unheard
was
of.
just like, what? Are
no,
you kidding me?
they're awesome.
So polite.
How many system transfers have you done from DSs to 3DSs to 3DSs to 2DSs back to the Pokemon 2DS to the Pikachu
Actually
3DS?
only done one.
Really?
Yeah, I've only
One
ever
is all
had
you
to
need.
one transfer. So I don't buy a lot of systems. So I had my original DS, then I got a DSi, then I had a 3DS XL, and now I have a 2DS.
Is that
That's it. And
is
I
that
only
the
transferred
Pikachu one?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
only
you moved it to
transferred-
there.
Yeah.
That's a
only transferred
good
once.
that's a good final
I think I've
place to
done it-
live.
I think I've done it twice. I had a 3DS XL first, and then I got the Monster Hunter 3DS, and then I transferred from that one to the Majora's Mask 3DS.
Got it.
I did it twice, and I feel like it took like 4 hours every
Takes
time.
it takes
wow.
forever, and it's
Yeah.
like
It's a
sometimes
thing.
it'll just quit in the middle of your transfer, and you have to do it
geez.
over, and
So-
like it's bad.
The nice thing
Pikmin
about
get tired.
The one I did, it was really fast. Like it took maybe 20 minutes to
Oh wow.
and it was like very visible about like what processes were happening. Unlike times when you're downloading things, just like how long is this going to take?
Oh, that's
But this
awesome.
one, I don't remember it showed the estimated time, but it definitely showed like the progress and like what it was
Right.
working on. So
Yeah.
I felt like it was very responsive and good information.
It's kind of a scary process because you have to have both systems plugged in and charging at the same time.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I was afraid I was going to knock one out, and this
Yeah, but if you have issues, definitely call Nintendo support because they're very kind and they are helpful.
they will take care of you.
Well, yeah, totally. One additional note, too, about the whole dock situation, and I just want to make this very clear to you guys. This applies not just to docks, but to all power adapters themselves. So make sure you're only charging your Switch with the power adapter that it came with, the official Nintendo power adapter. 'cause
Oh, I'm not doing that at all.
Yeah, I don't
I'm
do
totally
that.
not.
Yeah.
that's what they're saying. Yeah,
Ooh.
that's what you should
I'll totally
be
just
using.
plug it into like an iPhone
So-
plug.
Oh, I don't do that. I have
Yeah.
like a RAV power brick and external. 'cause
Oh, Rav.
yeah, RAV.
Like, so all of those are potentially, they could overcharge your Switch and cause it not to essentially gain the charge that it needs to.
I read
But if
this
you
like,
overcharge your Switch for a while, you could play PS4 games on it.
that's true. Yeah, it gets cool as hell. It gets to do the ultimate graphics.
So the story is like sort of developing
Play
right
Odyssey
now.
on max settings.
And you know, we'll keep you guys updated as it gets bigger and stuff like that. So check back on IGN.com. I don't know what's going on over there, but
Sorry.
Just shake it
Brian and
back.
I started drinking at about noon, so no, I'm just kidding.
But say, wait, what? Where's mine? Come on.
oh,
this
man.
next story has got me very excited.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this too. So, recently, this past week, Nintendo has filed 9 trademarks for some games that they announced at their previous direct, and we know about a couple of these, or most of them, I'd say. So they filed trademarks for Dylan's Dead Heat Breakers, Luigi's Mansion, Mario and Luigi, Metroid, Metroid Prime, Smash Brothers, not Super Smash Brothers,
Right.
just Smash Brothers.
Okay.
WarioWare, and then the last one, Wario Land, which is pretty interesting because we did not get a Wario Land sort of announcement for during their last direct. Right?
Yeah.
Right, but we did get that Wario.
WarioWare collection.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for the
So excited
3DS.
for that.
So dope.
So
Yeah.
this obviously this has to be a separate title, something that we obviously haven't heard of before, was not yet announced.
I mean,
and I would love to have.
We could also be looking at like a Wario Land collection. You know,
yeah.
I think the idea that they're just trademarking Smash Brothers leads me to believe that the next Smash Brothers game will just be called Smash Brothers.
Yeah,
but
there were a
just
couple.
Yoshi or just Kirby.
Yeah,
for sure.
Potentially.
I'm down with that. There were a couple Wario Land games on the Game Boy, original one.
They're awesome.
They're awesome, and they're the sequels to Mario Land. And there's also another one that was on the Virtual Boy that no one played. That weirdly enough, Jules, who was working on the Chicken Wiggle Kickstarter a couple years ago, just tweeted out this thing like at Nintendo, and was just kind of like, "Hey, like I colorized Wario Land for Virtual Boy, and here it is." And it looked gorgeous because, like, if you remember the Virtual Boy, which you shouldn't,
red and black. Yeah.
it's all red and black, and it made you blind.
It's funny you say that because they actually trademarked that game, but the Japanese version title for it, which is, I'm going to butcher this as well,
Yeah.
Awazan no Hyo.
I think you did
Pronounced Garuk.
Garuk, excuse me, yes. But yeah, that was actually trademarked back in 2014, and they've just kind of been sitting on that. So there could be a potential link there. It'd be awesome to get that like WarioWare Virtual Boy game because that game was really good for anyone who did get a chance to play it.
good, right?
What if what if we're looking at a situation like Samus Returns, where it's a game that was sort of, extremely niche, and they've handed it off to somebody and said like, "Hey, rebuild this game for 3DS or something."
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that idea because I think it's like one of those things where most people didn't try to go back to the original Game Boy Samus Returns, or Metroid 2. Because why,
So
why
obtuse,
bother?
yeah.
But there's something in the core there that's awesome, and it's great to bring it to a new audience. I love that idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
I also like the idea of a Wario Land collection.
Me too. Yeah, make it all.
There's a few of those. What was the one on on NES? The first Wario Land game,
Wario.
or was it Super NES? I don't remember.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Wasn't it Game Boy or something?
There was Game Boy games, but I feel like wasn't there an NES or a Super NES Wario?
There was
Land
Game Boy
game as well?
Advance games.
Let us know in the
too.
comments
Maybe it was.
if you guys
Maybe it was
remember.
Game. Maybe
I
I'm
have
thinking
a
Game Boy Advance.
thing called Google.
Oh,
in my
the
hands.
information phone.
She's Googling.
Did you get one of those? That's great. I don't have that.
Yeah.
Fancy.
But regardless, I love Wario.
I wanna
He's such a little turd.
Yeah,
really
he's
excited
like
to
a
see
weird
him come
fart
back and
uncle.
just-
He's
yeah.
awful.
And the
Throwing his money
gameplay
all around.
The gameplay of those games is so wildly different than what you get in like a typical Mario
Yeah.
game too.
It's so much more like puzzly, if that makes sense.
Well, because most of them, you can't die, and it's not about death. It's about like wearing a hat and running through walls, or like becoming a zombie or something like that. And then remember that company Treasure?
Yeah, of course.
Made one for GameCube. And then there was another one for Wii called Wario Shake It. Like it's just a weird man, and they give him weird games, and I love them for that.
Well, Nintendo, if you are making it, please do us a favor and include Waluigi in this one in some way.
As a guest
Just make him like
character.
an alternate character, yeah, or
Throw
just
some roses.
something. Yeah, exactly. Woo the ladies a little bit.
Yep. Another weird man.
Yeah.
Like, just do the tuxedo mask thing, but
Yeah.
Wario gets to be Sailor Moon.
Perfect.
All right, so I know that we have not received any sort of announcements for Fortnite coming to Switch. We have not heard of that happening. No official word yet at all, but we do have a Battle Royale game coming, or a game with a Battle Royale mode coming to Switch.
It was only a matter of time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. It's obviously one of the hottest, biggest new genres in gaming, and everyone can't stop talking about games like PUBG and Fortnite. And one company, one developer by the name of Black Riddle Studios is developing a game called Crazy Justice. Now, Crazy Justice is actually a crowd-funded game that started on Fig.com, and it originally was typically supposed to be a PS4 and Xbox game, and then once if they reached a certain tier in funding,
Right.
then they would bring it to Switch, and then if they reached another tier, they would add like a battle royale mode and all of that stuff. So they like are way overfunded. They funded themselves like, I don't know, 200% or something like that.
my God.
So
Nice.
yeah, there's some gameplay right now. If you're watching the video version of the podcast right now, you can see this is the actual Battle Royale mode in action. And I think this is running on Switch as well. So
Wow.
yeah, it looks pretty cool.
It looks a lot like Fortnite. Like
Yeah.
art direction wise, it looks a lot like Fortnite.
Yeah, like
I kind of
Fortnite.
like the background, or I guess that was just the barrier, but the barrier, the way the backgrounds look with it.
Yeah,
when it's
totally.
sketched. I like that.
I'm getting like slight Borderlands
That's what I was-
vibes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Borderlands,
Yeah,
yeah.
too.
It also looks like it's running pretty choppy.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's a little, it's a little ways out from release.
It's I don't know. This is weird because it's like Fortnite clearly took a bunch of stuff from PUBG, so now people are taking from Fortnite. So it's just sort of like robbing people to rob people to rob people, and I guess that's legal now. So
A bunch of iterations on one thing.
Variations on a theme.
totally cool. Video games.
Remember when there were a bunch of MOBAs and now there's only 2?
Yeah, what
Just
happened
kidding,
there?
There's a few there's the other few that matter too, but you know.
If you are interested in Crazy Justice, though, just know that it's not just a battle royale game. Like, there's also going to be a single player as well as like arena style multiplayer modes as well, and it's also a $15 game. So just go in with that sort of expectation.
Then the big thing you have listed here is that it has crossplay.
Yes, it is going to have crossplay between Xbox, PC, and Switch. Sony is obviously not going to jump in on that bandwagon. But the more I hear about crossplay happening, especially when it involves Switch, is just extremely exciting. Like, I love the idea of that future, like that kind of a future in video games.
I understand like the balance concerns for people playing on PC versus a console, just because of how those controls work differently. But honestly, just having the ability to crossplay between any systems is so exciting. Like crossplaying for like Sea of Thieves, for instance, it's just so nice because it just makes that player pool so much bigger.
Yeah.
And then I can play with my friends who don't have an Xbox One or who don't have a PC.
And it's also Fortnite Mobile is doing something really interesting, and I know that this is who did it before. Oh my God, why can't I think of the name? It's like one of the biggest games in the world, Rocket League. Rocket League did it before as well, where you can toggle options to say like, I only want to play against Switch players. I only want to play against, you know, I want to play against everyone. Fortnite Mobile does, you know, like I only want to be pooled up with mobile players. That's how I got my first ever victory royale. But you know, like I think that's really interesting because if you are concerned about, oh well, my skills on a controller are, you know, not as good as somebody playing with mouse and keyboard in this game, like just toggle it off and play against your pals.
Yeah,
totally.
I think that's a must, definitely. So yeah, let's bring the conversation closer to the video games that we're going to talk about this week. Let's talk about Detective Pikachu.
Yay!
Now that game came out last week, correct?
Yes.
So we're a little late on our coverage for it here on NVC, but that's because we had a pretty big week last week as well. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, Miranda, and you played a little bit of it too.
Yeah, I played the first I don't know, a couple hours.
Yeah, I only got a chance to play the demo. I did not get.
Does the demo go through the necklace case?
That's the first chapter.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess I played through the first chapter then.
So, but you basically played the demo with me.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. So yeah, I don't know. What do you think about it? Tell us a little bit about it. What kind of game is it?
I give it an 8.2. So Detective Pikachu is an adventure game. And so what that means in this sense is that you're going to do a lot of reading because it is essentially just kind of like more classic. Like you're looking through these environments to find clues to help you prove a case or like solve a case. In a way, I kind of describe it like math. So even if you know, it's weird to say, right? So even if you know the answer to your case, you have to prove it, right? And so you have to go through all the steps of finding the evidence and like proving every little thing to justify why you came to this conclusion. And which makes sense because if you're accusing someone of doing a crime, you got to have, evidence.
Yeah.
And it is such a charming game.
Plus
like, I love this so much.
Plus there's all those moments where you have to use the Pythagorean theorem in this game.
Yeah, of course, just help you memorize all your algorithms.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what this is about is this kid named Tim goes to Rhyme City to find his father, who is a detective who has gone missing. He had been gone for 6 months, missing for 2 months, and Tim runs into this Pikachu who can talk, but Tim is the only person who can hear him. So Pikachu just sounds like a Pikachu to everybody else.
This is not the Pikachu,
No.
right? This is Pikachu.
Detective Pikachu.
Got it. So separate character.
Yeah. Which is
got it.
really interesting because like that was such a big thing for me. Is like this Pikachu has to like sell me on its character because Pikachu is so iconic. Obviously, like has this like charming, sweet, gentle personality, and Detective Pikachu is so far from that.
Yeah,
totally.
It's like really sassy.
Detective Pikachu is like, he's very like kind of grumpus.
Yeah.
And he loves to drink a coffee and he likes to hit on human women.
Oh.
Yeah, he flirts with the ladies sometimes.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of weird because obviously they don't understand him. And so like at least for like really weird moments. But that's not something that's ever too present or takes away from his character, which I really appreciate. It's like it was more for just like goofs. And then like once it's like, okay, that's a little weird, but I don't want to spoil it because you'll know it when you get to there.
But in the game,
You'll know it because you'll feel uncomfortable. Yeah.
And you're like, oh, Pikachu, what are you doing?
you play as Tim, right?
Yes, so you are Tim. You're the kid that's looking for his father. And then in the scene that if you're watching the video, this is when you first meet Detective Pikachu is kind of an Apom's on your face, and then you're like talking to somebody, and it's like, oh, it's a Pikachu talking. What the heck? Anyway, so together you go through all these cases to find out what happened to Tim's father, and through them, 9 chapters, I believe. Like you meet a lot of other people who kind of help you come to these conclusions and kind of act as your tools, as opposed to having a Pokedex or any sort of technology. Detective Pikachu and Tim rely on other people for information and Pokemon. So one thing that I really liked about this is that since Detective Pikachu is a Pikachu, can talk to Pokemon, and you can learn like way more about Pokemon than I knew before. And in the context specifically of them being partners with people, because like a lot of games when it just stars Pokemon, you just get this different sort of feel from them, and their personalities are shaped by that outdoors environment or that adventure world.
Right, there's sort of a disconnect.
Yeah, but then in this situation, we get a perspective that you just don't see, because very like outside of Meowth, like there's not a lot of insight into like how Pokemon are actually feeling or reacting to their trainers. So in this very early thing, you go and talk to, I forget which Pokemon. Early on, you talk to this one Pokemon and it's distressed. And you think it's because of the Apom that have just like caused a ruckus, but it's actually because it has to eat berries later that it does not want to eat. And it's like healthy for it. And its trainer is like doing it every week.
That's the what's it called? Frou?
Yeah. Frou.
Yeah.
And you see that early on, you're like, oh, that's not what I expected at all. And there's just like so many moments in this that are uniquely Pokemon that kind of help you solve these cases or involve like the solution of these cases, which make it just so fun. And like I just really loved learning more about Pokemon in this very unique way, because a lot of times for Pokemon games, it's either an action game, it's typical big RPG, it's a puzzle game, it's like something different. But this is just all about that story and about learning about the world of Pokemon.
Yeah. That's so cool.
So are you playing through the game like in a completely linear fashion?
Yes.
Yeah, so like it's not an open world where you can like run around.
There's like some places where you can adventure, like there will be like 3 parts places. So in this first area, it's like a big park, right?
Right.
So then you find like the first clues that lead you to the park, and then you have 3 parts of the park to investigate. And some of those places get immensely bigger, and that kind of makes it a little bit more challenging. But I think, Zach, you had a question. Okay. So
False.
I heard you don't think this is very hard?
I think this is a child's game for babbies.
It is essentially, so that's the big thing on this. This game is not difficult.
Not at all.
And it's not supposed to. So
I played, like I said, I played the opening chapter, and honestly, like gameplay wise, I bored me to tears. Like I think it's like so super boring. But the thing that I really did like about it is the characterization is really great, and the way that it shows Pokemon just out in the world, I really loved. Who are the little guys that drop down from the trees?
Oh, I forget their names.
Yeah. But there's just these moments where it's like you're looking for clues to solve this case, and somebody tells you like, oh, well, these dudes that live in the trees might have seen it, and then you like shake the trees and these little guys drop out of it, and you're just like, oh yeah, you forget like in the world of Pokemon, because in the core games, when the way you encounter Pokemon is in battle in a field or something, or they're just there on the screen as an icon that you can talk to. But here it's like they're everywhere, and they serve a bunch of different purposes. And like there's in the first chapter, there's a Pokemon that is like a waitress that comes out and serves you coffee, and like it's just like, for a Pokemon fan, like I'm not a huge Pokemon fan. I play each of the games one-sided. Like I'll play Moon versus Sun and then play through it and call it a day. Once I become king of gyms. But for a Pokemon fan like Miranda or Casey or somebody, like this must be such a cool way to experience this world.
Yeah.
It's so different, and the cutscene stuff. Like it's funny because of all Nintendo properties, I was like, why would you do a Detective Pikachu movie? Like that just does not make sense to me. I played 1 chapter of this game and I was like, I would definitely watch a Detective Pikachu movie. Like this is really fun.
After seeing some of the trailers for this too that are live action, I'm like so much more excited for Detective Pikachu. Although I'm just like, if you guys do this certain style that they did this trailer in, then I think it'd be really cool.
Right.
So kind of going on the whole thing about difficulty, like it's very telling that it's not going to be super challenging if you know languages, which is kind of a weird thing to say. So when you're picking your language, it says English first, and then the next one is Japanese, but specifically in hiragana. So hiragana only, which indicates that it's meant for younger players.
Oh,
and then you can also pick one that uses kanji. So it's like 2 different ways.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, so like because I study Japanese, like that's like a telling thing for me that it's like, hey, this is geared toward younger players and being accessible for that. But even with that said, I do appreciate that the cases going forward aren't toned down because of that, or like the subject matter, like the places it goes with this are kind of surprising.
Yeah, there's
I
all
was
those
just
crazy
oh. Yeah, of course.
Do you think you're noticing that because you're an adult and you're bringing in like adult sensibilities and like it might be over a kid's head? Like in like when you're watching a Pixar movie, there's like two different audiences sometimes laughing at different jokes.
Yeah. Like there's a little bit of that here and there for sure. And like just some of the things that they tackle, considering like the world of Pokemon, like what the overarching case is and like some of it, it's just not what I would have suspected them to do.
Right.
Which I really enjoyed. And there are parts when it can be more difficult, but it doesn't penalize you if you get that wrong or if you do, or if you mess up in some sort of way. So basically, if you accomplish these more difficult things later on, like there's one point where I actually had to pull out a pen and paper and do math for like 20 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because like I kept getting it wrong, so I would just restart the scene.
X
And then I
equals
was just
opposite
like-
B plus or minus square root.
Yeah, exactly. So actual math, and I just basically got a scene from it, but like that optional thing was so cool.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have gotten if I would have gotten that thing right.
I think it's interesting that there's like layers of interstitial stuff that it does that's really cool. Like at any given time, you can talk to Detective Pikachu. There's an icon on your lower
Called a
screen.
Pika prompt.
Yeah, that you can tap. Like so during conversations, he'll be like, "Hey Tim," and then you can tap on it and he'll be like, "Did you hear that? This person just said this. Keep that in mind." And so it's like a nice tip for like a younger player or somebody that like to have them register that. But then also there's specific times like in the first chapter, there's a kid playing soccer with his Pokemon, and if you are walking past him and you tap Detective Pikachu, it'll show you a brief cutscene where like the ball comes over to Detective Pikachu and he's like, "What the heck's going on here?" and like kicks it out of the way. And it's just a nice little touch that didn't have to be there,
Right.
but it totally personalizes that character so much more.
No, that rules.
Yeah.
And so those are actually the collectibles that you get with the amiibo too. So after you pass a chapter and if you use your amiibo, it'll unlock randomly a scene that you did not unlock while you're playing.
Cool.
So you can pretty much tap Pikachu at any time and he'll just say something. So sometimes he'll give you coffee tips because Detective Pikachu is like super about coffee. And one of them's really cute. He's just kind of like, don't throw away coffee grounds because you can use them for other things. Like, don't be wasteful. And it's just like really weird one-off
life
thing.
advice.
Well, yeah, it's like, oh, make sure you use good water when brewing coffee because that changes the quality. I'm just like, what?
That's great facts for children. Children love coffee.
Yeah, that's
For
what
the
I
future
thought.
baristas out there.
They need to know these things.
So the amiibo in general, it's sitting on our desk right now. If you're watching our show, is for no explanation whatsoever, massively oversized compared to a regular amiibo. And I feel
Let's
like
do a close up.
Yeah, no, it's like I didn't know when I saw the Detective Pikachu amiibo. I don't know how like closely you tracked any of the actual details on it, but when I saw pictures of it, I was like, oh, cool, another amiibo. And then this thing shows up, and it is just massive.
Weighs
like,
over 5 pounds.
I won't say unnecessarily because I'm very proud of this big boy.
It's actually
So cool.
pretty heavy.
Like, the
Have you felt
detail-
the weight of this thing?
Yeah, it's awesome.
The details on his hat and stuff too are just like really great.
It's really cool, and he's standing on a sort of like Google Maps of the coffee shops that he goes to, and he looks kind of like Godzilla stomping out a city. I really dig it,
Yeah.
and it's cool because it sort of reiterates this message that Nintendo has been sort of sending, that Amiibo doesn't actually mean anything in terms of a style guide. Sometimes it's cereal, sometimes it's like
A giant plush.
a giant plush. Like it can be it's cards, it's any number of things. So this is really cool. I hope we see more giant amiibo like this. Like this is great.
Yeah, and overall, just like the characterization and just getting to know Detective Pikachu was such a delight. Like I don't even joke that he's like one of my favorite Pikachu now. It's like weird because there's a list of Pikachu I have.
I
that are
think
Pikachu,
just from what I played, he's got to be like for sure the best
And
part of the game.
For sure, like the first chapter is very handholdy, and then as you go on, it lets you kind of explore a bit more without him like overbearingly say, "You should go talk to that person. Go do this right now."
Right.
Or like you can only do these things. It does get a little bit more open, so you have room to mess up. That being said, sometimes there are parts that you have to revisit, and I did get stuck on some of those. Like it only happened twice in the many, many cases I solved. So that was a little bit of an irritating thing because it's not always obvious, but.
Did they talk at all about like maybe adding additional cases down the line, or is this story is it
Not
open and
that I
shut?
know of, but if they wanted to do an additional game, they probably could. Like they totally could. Like there's room
cool.
for more if they wanted to do something, and I really hope they do because I think this is just such a great way to learn more about Pokemon.
I want more Pokemon games where they have like human jobs, like Dr. Jigglypuff or something like that.
Dr. Jigglypuff.
So there's also just a shout out for this. There's
Dentist
a
Scyther.
prologue story. That's weird. So there's a prologue. Well, there's Dr. Mario.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's not a Pokemon, but prologue story about Detective Pikachu available now on Kindle, and I think that Apple Books, whatever it is.
Right.
Just kind of for free. If you just want to read about Detective Pikachu.
Yeah.
It's obviously a kid's book, but it's really cute. It's about Eevee.
That's adorable.
So if you're a Pokemon fan and you're like Zach or I, or maybe Brian too, like where you play the games but you're not as invested in all the cutscenes in the story, would you say that this is still the right game to pick up, or is this more for like Pokemon fans who really like the lore of the series?
I think if you like Pikachu, if you like adventure games, then yes, pick it up. But don't go into this thinking it's going to be the hardest thing in the world. It's not going to be like Grim Fandango level of puzzles. It's going to be like you're just talking to some people and putting 2 and 2 together and then having a good time.
Sometimes you need that, like some light reading. I remember when I was a little kid, I used to read like Encyclopedia Brown books, and there also, I think there was like the girl version was like Nancy Drew, and you knew within 10 minutes you're like, oh, I know the dude that did this crime, and you just kept reading it anyway because you're like, oh, that's it. I like to see how it played out.
Yeah, and that's kind of it. And then also there are sometimes like certain cases have surprises that's just like, oh, I didn't expect this thing to happen,
Right.
and that's awesome. And so I think getting through it is definitely worth it if you're interested in this kind of thing.
Yeah, and you get that cool talking electric rat, his hat, and his friends together at last.
Very cool. Well, we got a lot more games to talk about. We're going to pick it up with our pick of the week this week, and that's Outlast 2 for Nintendo Switch.
Why do you guys keep picking like scary things when I come on?
We're trying to scare all the kids out there.
I'm a
see
huge
how it
horror
is.
fan, so I mean this one was a no-brainer for me. I was a little bit of a kind of a weird, quiet week on the eShop, but Outlast 2 is a massive game, so that's finally out. The Outlast 1 came out about a month ago now. So if you're a huge Outlast fan, or if you're just a horror games fan in general, this game is now available on Switch, and I've been playing a ton of it. It's okay. I like the first Outlast better than Outlast 2.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's been the general consensus.
Yeah.
People who play.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I just had like pretty high expectations coming out of Outlast 1, for Outlast 2, especially with like the whole vibe. Because right now, or Outlast 2, instead of taking place inside of like an asylum or an institution, the majority of the game takes place like on a farm in this sort of like rural area.
Curses.
Yeah. So,
Write that down,
creepers.
Malkowitz. We're gonna have to censor that.
but yeah, it's cool. Like, having these types of, this series come to Switch is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, it's fun having horror games like this that look beautiful and are scary, truly scary. Like,
Yeah, they're running really well, which
Yeah.
is pretty awesome.
It's nice because this is the kind of thing that you would not have seen on a Nintendo console in the Wii and Wii U.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
I wouldn't have
there's
expected
no
this
way
to be
that a
in there.
game where a man
Drops an
literally,
F-bomb.
drops an F-bomb and then gets a pickaxe to the groin would ever make it onto the Nintendo Wii.
That's
you know?
true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yep.
That was actually in
Although
there.
the Wii had a great Silent Hill game.
That's true. It's not, Shattered Memories.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's available now. I think it's $39.99.
Sounds right.
$40,000.
I'm sorry, yeah. But definitely check it out. It's available on the eShop. But back by popular demand, because you guys enjoyed it so much the last time we did it, we have a pick of the week, and now we have a skip of the week every week here on NVC. And this week's skip of the week is a game called No Thing.
No thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's called No Thing, like N-O Thing.
I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
It's really kind of a weird, interesting
like a-
game. A little hard to describe. We have it on the monitor right now if you're watching the video.
It's like a racing
It's a runner.
game. Yeah, it's a runner, like an
not an
endless
endless-
runner, kind of. But I mean, you just repeat this track over and over again, and literally to move if you're watching, you just click the left or right shoulder buttons. Like, so
Right.
it gets faster and faster. So you have to click left or right, in the appropriate time. And like, there's some skill in the fact that like you'll take a turn too tight and you'll be right on the edge, and so you have to wait until the very last minute on the next turn. But this pixelization means that it's getting faster, and there you can see that there's like bumps in the track so that it'll let you skip parts of it. But as far as I can tell, that's the entire game.
Yeah, that's essentially
the whole thing.
You
Yeah.
totally just summarized
And there's like this
it.
weird floating head of Ben Franklin in the like. What's that about? I don't know.
Oh, yeah, it's totally Ben Franklin and the Ghost.
There's like a little bit of a story here, and the game has like what Zach was saying. It has some interesting mechanics, like those little bumps on the road that appear up sometimes. They allow you to jump, which allows you to like skip to like a different platform in the game, which is cool. But like that's the whole game.
This is
Like,
it.
That's it. Yeah. There's no more to it. So it's a little unfortunate. It's on the cheaper side. It's like $1.99, I believe. But it's the kind of game that, and I was telling Zach before we started recording, it's the kind of game that you would like download on your phone and then play it once and then forget about it.
Right.
Just never play it again.
Yeah.
Like it has its moment where it's like, oh, this could be good, but it's not even,
Well, yeah.
in my opinion, worth.
I was sitting at Philip's desk playing it earlier today, and like I couldn't stop playing it. Like I played it for like 10 minutes, and I was like, oh, yeah, I think I'm getting better at this. But as soon as I put the Switch down to go to a meeting, I was like, that game just got erased from my memory entirely.
Yeah.
It was like,
Were you able to read all the text on the bottom while you're playing?
no.
That seemed to
Definitely
be kind
not.
of important.
Really? No. I didn't even register.
There's some possible accusations of murder.
Oh,
What?
I see.
Person was like, I know what you did.
Was it Ben
and
Franklin?
The Queen knows too.
Yeah,
It's like,
that's-
what is happening?
We got to send Detective Pikachu into that game and figure out those crimes. Who murdered the ghost of Ben Franklin?
pick
This
it
is a
up,
real
Pikachu.
mashup. You got
Yeah.
a little mashup going.
Well,
Yes,
no,
bad game.
no thanks, no thing.
Yeah.
we were not playing you.
So,
That's a bummer.
Trailblazers is a game that was announced a couple weeks ago, or a month ago now, actually. It's been a little while. Trailblazers is coming to Nintendo Switch alongside PS4 and Xbox and PC. But we are really interested in this game. I'm interested in this game because it's sort of like a blending of Splatoon meets Fast RMX, essentially, which is really interesting. I've never seen something like this done in a video or in a racing game before. So essentially what your car does, you play in teams. So you have teams just like Splatoon. And you have a color, like right now, if you're watching the video podcast, our team's color here is yellow and the other team's color is like red or blue or something like that. And so you lay down what looks like digital ink on the track. And if you drive over your own colored ink that you laid down, it gives you a speed boost, kind of like what happens in games like Fast RMX when you go over those like fast tiles.
Yeah.
And then you can also obviously sabotage your opponents by clearing up the track with your own ink, covering up their ink. It's pretty cool. It has some really fun features. Like there's going to be online play as well, of course. There's also split screen co-op, so local co-op play on Switch. There's a story mode too for the single player fans out there. But a lot of this game I feel like is going to be just its multiplayer fan base, and it seems like it actually has some potential there to become a fun racer on Switch. I mean, nothing like Mario Kart, of course, but
Sure.
it's using mechanics that I definitely think are worth looking at. So
Yeah, it looks cool.
Yeah, especially in lieu of an actual F-Zero game or anything like that. This might hold us over.
yeah, exactly.
Cool.
So another game that Brian and I have been playing a little bit is called Earthlock.
Yeah, this one came out a couple weeks ago, and we kind of slept on it, and which is odd because it is like one of the biggest kind of smaller games to launch on the eShop in a while. It's a very sort of Final Fantasy, I know.
The biggest, smaller.
The big small game. It's a sort of Final Fantasy VII style RPG. It's fully 3D. It feels like something you would
Are you
have
playing
gotten.
as a small cat man?
This is the overworld map here, and so yeah, he's a small piglet dude, and he eats truffles out of the trash like a weird man. And then you can switch into a boy and a girl, and so basically this is a full 3D RPG. It's got like a full RPG combat system. There's dungeons. There's like leveling up. There's weapons you can find, and I feel like not a lot of people are talking about this game. I think it came to it's great.
Look at that pigman.
I think it came to PC and was kind of okay, and they added a whole bunch of stuff to it and made sort of a more definitive version, and that's the version you're getting here on Switch. So I really dig this game. I was kind of looking for something kind of grindy and RPG-like on my Switch, and nothing was really scratching the itch. Like I Am Setsuna kind of bored me, and then what's the new game?
Lost Sphere.
Yeah, Lost Sphere was kind of overwhelming in terms of the amount of systems in that game. And this is much more simple. It feels much more traditional RPG. It's not necessarily a JRPG, although it's definitely inspired by a lot of those tendencies.
It looks
so.
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got a very JRPG vibe.
So, yeah, I don't know. If you're
right
looking
here.
for something kind of big to play, maybe you crush through some of the more bigger first-party Nintendo games. Check this one out. It's really cool.
Yeah.
I like that tree man.
Yeah, and you can beat up the trees and be the pig.
His mustache is his arm.
It's weird.
I've been waiting for a while, it feels like, to talk about this next game.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Because we've had it for a little while now. It's the like review embargo is still there, but we can kind of give our thoughts and opinions on it. We can show it. But Bomb Slinger is another game that's coming out on April 11th for Nintendo Switch, and it's this roguelike game that has Bomberman gameplay mechanics to it.
Yes.
It's like a hybrid. So it's very, very cool. And when I first started playing it, I didn't know it was a roguelike. I thought it was just a Bomberman style adventure game, essentially.
It's kind of like the bombing of Isaac.
The bombing of Isaac.
Is what I would call
Yes,
it.
that's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah, so I played this game and I was really into it because the music's great and it's sort of this like farmer, this old farmer that goes on this adventure to blow up a bunch of bad guys that have taken over his farmland. And then I got to the second boss and I died and it made me start all the way over. And I went to talk to Philip and I'm like, dude, I was really into this game and then I died and it made me start from the beginning. And you were like, yeah, it's a roguelike. You got to do it all over again, but you get new things unlocked and you can add new inventory slots and you can open up new powers. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, I'm going to replay this a bunch of times. And I've been doing that. And it's been this really sort of fun game. Like I love games on Switch that I can just kind of like pop open, play for 20 minutes and then put away. And the animation in this game's cool. The art's really fun. The enemy types start to get really interesting and really challenging. And it's kind of this like weird mix of like voxels and pixel art.
Neat.
And
super
I dig it. I really dig it. It's like it's doing some special things while taking some kind of tropes that we've seen from other roguelikes and then adding Bomberman gameplay. And I dig it. And I think there's a multiplayer mode too, which I haven't tried yet.
Yeah, we definitely should try that.
Yeah, we should play that.
Yeah.
I like that you're just blowing up what appears to be an old man in his underwear carrying a pitchfork.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, and I think you're blowing up your own cornfields, and there's like stores that you can go into in the game that like let you buy guns and items and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know. Keep an eye on this one.
Oh, you blew up the dog.
No.
No, you'll see too. It does some really cool things, like what Brian was saying. When you go into stores, it changes perspective, which you'll see right now.
Oh, that's
there it
really cool.
Yeah, I dig it.
Yeah.
And there's this creepy shopkeeper guy, and he's like,
He's got a bad smirk going.
Yeah.
This is really interesting.
Yeah, I dig it a lot. It's definitely unique while still being pretty familiar.
Yeah, like the main core gameplay mechanic is bombs, but you do get these power ups that like give you guns and like lightning powers and stuff like that.
And there's
Here's
like drunk redneck bosses that try to kill you with alcohol and tornadoes, and you fight a goat.
Wow.
You know,
The actual like combat mechanic itself is really interesting because like I imagine you have to get there's an equal amount of like skill and luck involved because you have to get the timing of the bombs down.
Yep.
And then you have to assume like you know when an enemy will be at a specific spot.
Yeah, it's that plus sort of multiplied by the push and pull of deciding which weapons and items you want to use. Like
Right.
in the video here, we saw the character is kicking a bomb across the screen, but you can also level up the distance damage that your bomb does. So instead of getting, you can be really far from them,
Right.
you can get up close, and so there's a lot of variables, and winning more and playing more and unlocking more slots lets you just become more and more badass. So
it has
cool.
Yeah, it has
That's really neat.
It has pretty much like every power up that you find in your typical Bomberman game.
Totally.
But it also has some really crazy ones that you would have never thought.
like a
of.
shotgun.
Yeah, like a shotgun. Exactly.
That makes sense not to see that in Bomberman.
Yeah, definitely. And you can get band-aids to put on that boy's legs or whatever.
Yeah, keep your eyes on this one, guys. If you like roguelike games, if you like games like The Binding of Isaac,
That style is just so appealing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, really cool game. You've been playing a little bit of a game called Membrane.
Yeah, so this is another one that came out a couple weeks ago. I've been meaning to talk about it. Haven't really had a chance. I don't know if we have footage of it.
I don't remember if I added it.
So Membrane is a basically side-scrolling action platforming game that takes place inside of a man's brain after he gets after he gets stung by a mosquito.
Whoa.
This entire game is surreal looking. Like it looks like it's made in MS Paint. And the real hook here is that your character, who's like this little yellow guy with a pointy nose, kind of I'll be blunt. He kind of poops blood to make towers, and then he shoots things. So you build contraptions and kind of solve environmental puzzles.
Holy
And
cow. This is so psychedelic.
It's really psychedelic. It's really interesting. It's made by a small team. It's been in the shop for a while. If you're interested in it at all, go grab it. Check out some screens, check out some videos, maybe see if you can look up some gameplay. It's really cool. It's sort of like Beavis and Butthead meets Super Mario. Like it's just got a lot going on for it. And again, like the entire game looks like it's made in MS Paint. So it's just special. It's different than,
I'm very into that.
Yeah,
Looks
it's
really cool.
It's super cool. So give that a look.
Yeah, I'm excited to check that out.
All right.
All right, so time for Question Block, our weekly question block or our weekly question show with the audience. And thank you very much, Michael M., for sending us your question via our email, nvc@ign.com, just like you can every week if you want to get in touch with us and if you have any questions you'd like to send us. Actually, this one's from Brenton B. Excuse me. He says, "Hey, NVC crew, this is Brenton from Dallas, and I want to know something. Sea of Thieves is out, and watching the Let's Plays and whatnot has got me thinking something. What if Nintendo did something like this, but in the Wind Waker world? Would you want it? If so, why?" So he's asking, like, would we want like a Sea of Thieves style game with like a Wind in the Wind Waker world?
Multiplayer piratey game in the Wind Waker world?
Yes.
If I could run around with my car, I'd be a very happy lady.
Yeah.
So I know when I play Sea of Thieves, I keep thinking of Wind Waker because of all the sailing. But I don't know, like maybe the antagonistic attitude of Sea of Thieves and kind of just like that really aggression, I don't feel like would match super well with that.
I think it's a really good point.
I kind of like, I have an inkling that I maybe disagree, because I think the idea of like sailing the high seas as Tetra and her pirates and taking down your friends, that sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah. I think I think the biggest gripe right now with Sea of Thieves is there's just like not a ton to do.
Right.
And
it's really repetitive.
Yeah,
You
and
have the
given
same few things.
that Wind Waker, like when you boil it down, like that map is actually pretty small. And so obviously like it'd have to be retooled, but I think that if you could do things like find hidden dungeons that have loot, you know, like randomly generated stuff,
Right.
or like
I think what you guys are really asking for, and what Brenton's asking for, is a 3D Triforce Heroes or a 3D Four Swords Adventures, which had the Wind Waker art styles and some sensibilities. Yeah, but without like all of the looting and plundering, although there was some, like you do fight over treasures and loot inside the dungeons. Multiplayer Zelda is something we haven't really gotten enough of regardless, right? Like period. And I would love to see them explore that. I think that like, it's weird because like Sea of Thieves exists, so you can just play that, and it's a lot of role playing is in that game. So just pretend you're Link, you know.
There you go.
But in terms of like, I just want more Wind Waker, honestly, because I love that art style. I mean, you gushed about it last week. It's just one of my favorite games of all time. It's just a wonderful, wonderful game. And revisiting that with some multiplayer aspects would be really cool. But I don't know if I necessarily want a direct copy of Sea of Thieves.
Right. I think it'd be challenging too, because the sailing of Wind Waker is so simplistic in that like you're guiding the wind and like doing that way, whereas Sea of Thieves is a lot more intricate of like working with a crew to make sure things work. Like there's no like magical element to that, and like how you would apply that to a Wind Waker world. Obviously, not everyone would be able to control the wind because that would be real bad. But
there's a lot more variables in your ship. I know, that'd be nuts.
Yeah,
a lot more variables with your ship in Sea of Thieves, right? Like you're raising your massive.
Yeah, I'm sure Brenton's not asking for a 1-to-1.
Right.
Yeah.
But
that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, and I think there's interesting things that could happen there for sure. But I think if we just got more Wind Waker things, that'd be cool too.
Yeah, totally.
Yep, totally. All right.
Totally.
Totally.
Well, that's our show this week. Thank you very much for watching, listening. We're a weekly show on IGN.com, but you can also catch us on YouTube.com/Nintendo Voice Chat or any of your favorite podcasting listening services. I believe we're on Spotify as well.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
That was weird for me
crazy.
when I saw that NVC was on Spotify.
I know, like every episode,
Yeah.
except for that one.
Yeah, that one that we must never talk about again.
But hopefully you can catch the video podcast. Definitely watch us on IGN.com or YouTube. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in the video, so if you can, check that out. Yeah, so Miranda, are you working on anything cool this week before we go?
I worked on the Sea of Thieves wiki this morning.
Nice.
That's a thing.
Zach's working on breaking that.
I worked
thing
on
down
kicking
there.
that water bottle over.
I'm also going to PAX next week, so if you're at PAX East, let me know. That's my first PAX ever.
Oh, wow,
right on.
awesome!
Yeah.
PAX is so cool. You're gonna have a great time.
You're gonna love it.
Yeah, make sure you're following Miranda on Twitter if you want to get all her PAX updates.
Yeah, you can do that at Havoc Rose, and that's Havoc with a K.
Are you doing panels or anything like that?
Yes, we have an IGN panel. I think
cool.
we're talking about PlayStation 4 games. So
Sweet.
Cool. Awesome. Brian, you got anything coming out this
Bloodborne
week?
wins, right? Whatever you're talking about, Bloodborne wins.
I'm not saying anything.
Okay. It's got those little skull guys. living
Oh,
there.
I do love the messengers.
They're great.
They're my good
You can
babies.
get them little hats.
I do love them.
Yeah, they're awful. I did a bunch of Far Cry stuff this week. I did a sort of an action movie for IGN Stories, which is a new platform we just launched. You can also find that on Instagram. I interviewed Dan Hay, who's the creator, the executive producer of the Far Cry series, and talked about Far Cry 5 and basically how that game came together and how it balances all the things it's trying to attempt. That's on Facebook. It's a show called Expert Mode. And what else did I do this week?
Is it only on Facebook or is
It's
it on,
only on Facebook.
not on IGN.com?
It is right now a Facebook exclusive show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then there's a new episode of Up at Noon where we talked about Metal Gear and some of the funniest things that happened to us in Far Cry. So go check that out.
Yeah, definitely. How about you, Zach?
I haven't been working on anything fun. I've just been doing the logistics stuff.
Doing the logistics.
Yeah.
Any good numbers you can share with the audience?
7.
That's a great number.
That is
Thank
an
you.
awesome
Number of continents.
If you want to follow me, my Twitter handle is @ZachariasD,
Yeah.
where I tweet about all sorts of games. And next week, I'm back in the core content pool, so I'll be back to making stuff.
Nice. Glad to have you back there.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you guys very much for tuning in this week, and we'll see you next week. Take care.